Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. This time, we're going to explore how genetic algorithms, or GA, can totally revolutionize the way we think about production scheduling.
Yeah, and I think we've got a pretty awesome mix of materials to deep dive into. We've got academic papers and then some real-world case studies that I think really show the power of GA.
So what's the big deal with GA? I mean, why should someone care about this, especially on the factory floor?
Well, imagine, the factory floor, it's buzzing with activity, machines are running, products are getting assembled, deadlines are looming. It's a very complex environment.
Right, and things can change so fast, too. Like a machine can break down or an order can come in last minute.
Exactly. And GA, it's really good at dealing with that kind of complexity. Think of it like this. GA takes inspiration from Darwin, from evolution. It uses the idea of natural selection to find the best solutions to a problem, in this case, creating the most efficient production schedule.
So it's like survival of the fittest, but for production schedules.
Exactly. You have a bunch of different possible schedules,
Yeah.
and GA tests them out, evaluates them using what we call a fitness function. You can think of it like a scorecard, giving points for how efficient each schedule is.
The higher the score, the fitter the schedule. I like it.
Right. And then the best schedules, they kind of get to reproduce in a way. They get combined and tweaked to create a new generation of schedules, and this process keeps repeating over and over.
And over time, you end up with these super optimized schedules that take into account all the complexities of the factory. It's kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's really cool. But to get GA working, you got to feed it information, data about the factory and how things actually work.
So what kind of data are we talking about here? What does GA need to know?
Well, first off, you need a complete picture of all the machines you've got. What they do, how long it takes them to do each task. Then you need to map out all the tasks involved in actually making your products, which machines can do each task, how long it takes on each machine, all of that stuff.
So it's like building a digital blueprint of your whole production process.
Exactly. And you also have to consider things like raw materials, worker availability, any constraints or limitations you have, and of course, those deadlines and production priorities.
It sounds like a lot to keep track of. And how do we actually organize all this information so a computer can actually understand it? Is that where coding comes in?
You got it. Languages like Python or C#, they give us the tools to take this real-world factory information and structure it in a way that GA algorithms can actually work with.
So let's say we're using Python, which is super popular in this space. How would we represent our factory and how it works using Python code?
Well, in Python, you could use lists to represent the machines you have. Dictionaries would be great for storing information about each task. And you can even create custom objects to represent more complex things like production orders.
Okay, so it's all about breaking down the complexity of the factory into these manageable chunks of data.
Exactly. And then once you have that foundation, you can use awesome Python libraries like Deep. It's specifically made for implementing genetic algorithms.
So we're taking real-world factory data, turning it into Python code, and then feeding it into this GA library, DDDaby. That's quite a journey.
It is. And within Deep, you're basically defining the building blocks of your GA, things like the chromosomes, those represent the schedules, the genes, which are the individual elements of those schedules, and that fitness function we talked about earlier that tells you how good each schedule is.
This is blowing my mind a little bit. So DD gives us the framework, and we use our Python code to tell it all about our specific factory. It's like building a custom GA tailored to our needs.
You got it. Now, it would be much different if we were using C# instead. The basic ideas, they'd be pretty much the same. C# has its own libraries like Genetic Sharp for GA. You just use different ways of structuring the data, C# classes instead of Python dictionaries, that sort of thing.
But the big picture stays the same. We got to translate the real world into data that GA can work with, whether it's Python or C#.
Exactly. And once you've got that foundation, you can start experimenting with different ways of actually representing the schedules themselves. And these are called encoding schemes.
Encoding schemes, that sounds like a whole other layer of complexity we need to unpack. I think we'll have to save that conversation for the next part of our deep dive.
So these encoding schemes, right, they're kind of like the Rosetta Stone for GA, helping it understand the language of the factory floor.
I'm intrigued. How do they actually work, these Rosetta Stones of production scheduling?
Okay, imagine you've got a huge factory, tons of machines, hundreds of tasks to schedule. You need a way to represent all those possible schedules in a way that GA can handle.
Makes sense, yeah.
One common approach is using what we call a job sequence matrix.
Job sequence matrix. Okay, that sounds like something I could picture. How does that work?
So picture a table or a matrix. Each row is a machine in your factory, right? Each column is a job that needs to be done, and the numbers in the cells. They tell you what order to do the tasks for each job on each machine.
So if I see 3 in a cell, that means the third task of that job should be done on that machine.
Bingo! It's pretty visual, easy to understand even for us humans. The GA then plays around with these numbers, tries different arrangements in the matrix to find the most efficient schedule.
That's really clever. It's like a giant Sudoku puzzle for the GA to solve.
Yeah, kind of like that. But there are other ways to do this too. Another one is called permutation with repetition.
Permutation with repetition. Now that sounds a bit more complicated.
It is a little bit, yeah. Instead of a matrix, you have this string of numbers, and each number represents a task that needs to get done.
So let's say we have 5 tasks, right? A string like 2, 1, 4, 2, 5 means we do task 2, then task 1, then task 4, then back to task 2, and finally task 5.
Yep, that's it. And repetition is there because, one task might need to be done on multiple machines, so it could appear more than once in the string.
But doesn't that make it harder to figure out which task goes on which machine?
Yeah, you need some extra logic, some rules to decode the string. But, it's more compact, especially for really big, complex schedules.
So choosing the right encoding scheme, it's about finding the right trade-off between simplicity and how much information you can pack in.
Exactly. In fact, there's this paper, Applying Genetic Algorithms to Optimization of.pdf. It actually has a whole framework for trying out different encoding schemes and seeing which works best for your specific problem.
That's cool. So we've established implementing GA for production scheduling. It's not exactly plug and play, right? There's a lot of thought that goes into it.
Yeah, no doubt. You need to really understand your production process, be able to translate that into a language that GA understands.
And like we were discussing before, GA can really deliver. That textile factory case study from JSM svol.4 on now, but 40003.pdf, they knocked off 40% of their production time, which is incredible.
Yeah. But like with any powerful tool, you got to know what you're doing, right?
Mm.
There are some challenges to think about, too.
What kind of challenges are we talking about? What are some of the things companies need to be aware of before they jump in head first?
Well, one thing is GA can be computationally expensive, especially when you're dealing with massive schedules. Running those simulations can take a lot of processing power and time. You might need some serious hardware or even cloud computing to handle it.
So even though it's based on a natural process, implementing it might require some pretty advanced technology.
Yeah, for sure. And the data you feed the GA, that's got to be top-notch. Accurate, complete, up-to-date. Garbage in, garbage out,
You can't expect GA to work miracles if it's working with bad data.
Exactly. And you also need some expertise to set up and manage the system properly.
Right. I guess not every factory has a team of data scientists just hanging around.
Nope. Companies might need to train their staff or bring in outside experts to help them really get the most out of GA.
So there's definitely a learning curve there. But even with the challenges, the potential benefits are pretty impressive.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And as technology keeps getting better, computational power gets cheaper, I think we're going to see GA being used even more in the future.
GA is definitely changing the game for manufacturing.
Right.
We've covered a lot, the basic ideas, the encoding schemes, the challenges, but there's one more exciting frontier I want to explore, the future of GA in manufacturing. What kind of cool innovations and trends are on the horizon? So far, we've been talking about GA as this kind of standalone tool, but what's really exciting is how it's starting to team up with other cutting-edge technologies, right? Like, where do you see that heading, this whole convergence thing, in the future of manufacturing?
Oh, man, it's a really fascinating time to be in this field. I mean, we're seeing GA being combined with, expert systems and neural networks and all sorts of machine learning magic to create these super intelligent, adaptable scheduling solutions.
Okay, now you're throwing around some seriously advanced tech terms.
Yeah.
Can you give us an example? What would this actually look like in a real factory?
Yeah, sure. So picture this, right? You've got your GA system cranking away, but it's not just blindly crunching numbers. It's actually tapping into the experience of, the seasoned production planners, the people who've been doing this for years. And that's where expert systems come in. They can capture all that knowledge, all those gut feelings and decision-making processes of those human experts. So it's adding a layer of intuition and real-world wisdom to the optimization.
So it's like having a digital mentor, like a virtual production guru, working alongside the GA, whispering secrets in its ear based on years of experience.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, it doesn't even stop there. We can also bring in neural networks. They're amazing at learning complex patterns from data. So imagine a GA that can adapt and evolve along with the factory itself. Like it's constantly learning and becoming more attuned to all those tiny details, all the nuances of the production process.
It's like the GA is gaining experience, almost like it's becoming a veteran production planner itself.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And, that ability to learn, it's absolutely crucial when we talk about real-time optimization, which is kind of the holy grail in this field.
Real-time optimization. Okay, tell me more about that. What does that actually mean in practice?
Well, in the past, production schedules were pretty static. They were set for like a specific period. But today, everything's moving so fast. Manufacturing needs to be flexible. It needs to be able to react on the fly. So real-time optimization, it's all about continuously tweaking and adjusting the schedule based on what's happening right now, like new orders coming in, a machine breaking down, material delays, all that stuff.
So it's like having a GA that's always on, always watching, always ready to make a change to keep things running smoothly.
You got it. But to do that, you need to have data flowing in from everywhere, right? From your ERP system that's tracking inventory and orders, from your MES that's monitoring the shop floor. All of that data needs to be feeding into the GA in real time.
Wow, so the GA becomes the brain of the whole operation, taking in all this information and making these split-second decisions to keep things running at peak efficiency.
That's the idea. And I think as we move toward these like super connected, data-driven factories, the role of GA in real-time optimization is just going to explode.
It's amazing to think about how far we've come, right? From planning things out manually on a whiteboard to having these intelligent systems that can learn and adapt in real time. It's mind-blowing.
It really is. And it shows the power of GA and how creative people are getting with applying these concepts. And we're just scratching the surface here. As research keeps going, I think we'll see even more powerful GA algorithms that can handle just crazy complex scenarios.
It sounds like the future of GA in manufacturing is going to be wild.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with, like a final thought to ponder?
We've been talking about manufacturing, but really this whole idea of evolution and optimization, it goes way beyond the factory, right? Like these principles, they can be applied to all sorts of problems in life and work. I just encourage everyone to think about that. Like, where else can you use this stuff? The potential is huge.
That's such a great point. Always got to think outside the factory floor. Well, this has been an awesome deep dive into the world of GA and production scheduling. Thanks so much to everyone for listening. We hope you learned something new and maybe got a little inspired to explore how GA can change the game in your own world.